and expensive reconstruction. The Interior Minister said in September 2008, if the Palestinians fire a rocket, the IDF should decide on a neighborhood in Gaza and level it. That's the Dahiyah strategy. The operative plan for the Gaza bloodbath can be seen by looking at the authoritative statements released by Israeli officials as the massacre got underway. A reserve major general said, what we have to do is act systematically with the aim of punishing all the organizations that are firing the rockets and mortars, as well as the civilians who are enabling them to fire and hide. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces official spokesman, said anything affiliated with Hamas is a legitimate target. And it was a real success. We can't dispute that. Whereas Israel killed a mere 55 Lebanese during the first 2 days of the Lebanon war in 2006, the Israeli media exulted at Israel's what they called shock and awe, as it killed more than 300 Palestinians in the first 2 days of the attack on Gaza. Was it an accident? Several days into the slaughter, an informed Israeli strategic analyst wrote, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, which planned to attack buildings and sites populated by hundreds of people, did not warn them in advance to leave, but intended to kill a great many of them, and succeeded. The sometime historian Benny Morris, the full-time propagandist Benny Morris, he could barely contain his pride at what he called Israel's highly efficient air assault on Hamas. Not everyone in Israel was so impressed. The Israeli columnist B. Michael, he was not very impressed by what he called the dispatch of helicopter gunships and jet planes over a giant prison and firing at its people. Who are these people they were firing at? Gideon Levy says, you may recall those police cadets who were killed on the first and second day, or first or second day. Who were they? Gideon Levy describes them 70 traffic cops at their graduation ceremony, young men in desperate search of a livelihood who thought they'd found it in the police and instead found death from the skies. As Israel targeted schools, mosques, hospitals, ambulances, UN sanctuaries, as it flattened entire neighborhoods, as it slaughtered and incinerated Gaza's defenseless civilian population, Israeli commentators gloated that, quote, Gaza is to Lebanon as the second sitting for an exam is to the first. A second chance to get it right. And this time, Israel had hurled back at Gaza not 20 years, as it promised to do in Lebanon, but into the 1940s. Electricity is available only for a few hours a day. He's so happy. Another commentator, Israel has regained its deterrence capabilities because the war in Gaza has compensated for the shortcomings of the 2006 Lebanon war. Another commentator, there is no doubt that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah is upset these days. There will no longer be anyone in the Arab world who can claim that Israel is weak. And truly, who can any longer claim that Israel is weak? Who can doubt that it is strong, courageous, heroic? It caged in 1.5 million people, half of whom are under the age of 16, 80% of whom are refugees or sons and daughters of refugees. It built a fence and a wall around them. It then, for 2.5 years, systematically starved them. It then reduced them to abject despair. It then sent in jet planes, helicopter gunships, armored personnel carriers, and tanks. It then sprayed whole neighborhoods with white phosphorus. It achieved a magnificent killing ratio, 100 to 1. 14 Israelis killed, about 13 or 1,400 Palestinians killed. Who can claim that Israel is weak? Who can doubt its courage and heroism? The New York Times foreign affairs expert Thomas Friedman, he joined in the chorus of hallelujahs. He was thrilled by what Israel was doing. He said, there's a misconception, a widespread misconception. People think Israel lost the war in Lebanon in 2006. Not so, says Mr. Friedman, because Israel inflicted substantial property damage and collateral casualties on Lebanon during the war. It administered an education to Hezbollah. Hezbollah would now think 3 times before defying Israel. And he said he hopes that Israel would likewise educate Hamas by inflicting a heavy death toll on Hamas militants and heavy pain on the Gaza population. Now, it was said during the war in Lebanon, and Mr. Friedman repeats the claim, that Israel had no choice. These nasty Islamic fundamentalists, these demonic Muslims, they nestled among, or as he puts it, nested among the civilian population. They were embedded in the civilian population. They were intertwined with the civilian population. What choice did Israel have against those demonic forces of Hezbollah? What does the record show? Human Rights Watch, hardly a radical organization, in fact, a quite wretched one, in my opinion, it did an exhaustive study of that Lebanon war. Let me quote to you its main conclusion. We found strong evidence that Hezbollah stored most of its rockets in bunkers and weapons storage facilities located in uninhabited fields and valleys. That in the vast majority of cases, Hezbollah fighters left populated civilian areas as soon as the fighting started, and that Hezbollah fired the vast majority of its rockets from pre-prepared positions outside villages. And again, in all but a few of the cases of civilian